Hey, and welcome to Screencast number 4. We're going to look at different news and information neighborhoods in this episode. And we're going to use the issue of wolf reintroduction in Idaho as an example of the different types of information neighborhoods that we can find out on the internet. The first, and in my opinion most important, is the news neighborhood. And so we'll start our lesson here at OregonLive.com, which is the Oregonians website. That's based out of Portland. It's a large major metropolitan newspaper. And we're going to take a look here at an article about Oregon watching Idaho experience as wolves reduce elk population. We can see this is published February 2012, fairly recent at the time of recording. And it's by Richard Cockle of the Oregonian. We even have a picture of the author. That helps with our credibility question here. So this is a credible organization. They're telling us who wrote this and their affiliation. There's a little box here that lets us share and comment and recommend or not the article. Datelined out of Joseph, Oregon. And let's read the lead. Gray wolves have played a dramatic role in a 20% reduction of Idaho's elk herds over the past 15 years, and that could be an omen for eastern Oregon's 60,000 Rocky Mountain elk in the Blue Mountains. So this article is a feature news piece. That means the writer probably spent at least a few days, maybe a week or more, calling people, doing research, collecting information, including photos, and as we can see, it's fairly long, and he spoke to many people. Who did he talk to? Our first quote here comes from Craig White, Idaho Department of Fish and Game biologist, and he's kind of hanging the article on Idaho Fish and Game data that found wolves are the primary cause of mortality in backcountry zones in Idaho. That would be elk mortality. But as we go now, we see that our reporter spoke to many other people as well. So he talked to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is the federal agency that has jurisdiction over wolves, or had jurisdiction over wolves when they were endangered. We talked to Oregon Fish and Wildlife biologist, who can compare Oregon and Idaho, and lots of numbers and data to demonstrate what he's saying. So I would say this is a good news feature article. It has lots of sources. Spokesman for conservation group is now going to give a opposing view, and also a spokesman for a Boise Defenders of Wildlife conservation group, Suzanne Stone, is going to give her opinion. So we have lots of opinions in the news article, but it's all wrapped around the news neighborhood, and that is the author is not giving us his opinion. He's giving us access to other people's opinions, which is the, I would say, original mission of the newspaper. Some of that has been blurred in recent years. Let's take a look at another one. You'll notice here I have a ton of tabs open because I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff. When I surf the web, I often have a dozen or more tabs open at any one time. Some may say that's a sign that I can't pay attention to one thing at a time, but I also think it's a sign that I have lots of informational interests and easy access to them. Our next link is coming from the Idaho Statesman, idahostatesman.com. And this is more of a daily news story, so it's a little quicker, and it's by Rocky Parker, the Stateman's environmental reporter. Idaho wolf trapper smiling photo ignites firestorm. And they have a warning here in the headline. Photo has graphic content. So I apologize if this is disturbing to anyone. But this is a picture that was circulated in April 2012 of a Idaho trapper with a live trapped wolf, which is, at the least against trapping etiquette. But it caused what the Statesman's calling a firestorm, which we might argue is an editorial opinion, but it is in the headline. So who did Rocky talk to for this article? he names the trapper in the photo, first of all, Josh Bransford. And then he spoke to the agency that has jurisdiction over it, Idaho Fish and Game, Mike Keckler, spokesman, who says he didn't actually do anything illegal. They would have preferred if he didn't take a picture of a dying animal, but the Fish and Game Department decided that there was nothing illegal. So Rocky also speaks to the Center for Biological Diversity that had concerns about this photo and actually reported it to the Forest Service and the Idaho Attorney General. So we have then quotes from the Attorney General's office. So in this case, Rocky did a good job of talking to all the parties who were interested in this case and giving us their opinions. Again, I would say this is a fairly straight news article. Now let's take another look at a different neighborhood, okay? I'm going to go to the Huffington Post, which has a reputation as a liberal media outlet. It has a lot of other reputations as well that we won't get into right now. But this is their green section, so environmental news and notes. And we notice here it's labeled The Blog. Now, it doesn't say explicitly that this is opinion. I believe it is opinion, and I believe it should say it more explicitly. But this is coming from Noah Greenwald of the Center for Biological Diversity, the same group that we just saw quoted in Rocky's article criticizing this man's hunting practice. Idaho wolf management off the rails. Okay, so this is an even more opinionated headline. So we have to have our antenna on full alert in order to decide whether this is a opinion or news piece. And we can start reading it. By Idaho standards, it was big news this week when Idaho Governor Butch Otter approved the state's first ever felony animal cruelty law for pets and livestock, leaving the Dakotas as the only states without similar laws. I would say even in this first line, Noah Greenwald is showing some bias by criticizing Idaho. So that's our first clue that this is an opinion article. And he goes on to talk about the case of the trapper Josh Bransford and the lack of interest or prosecution from the state. So this would be a opinion piece posted on Huffington Post by this guy who's not a reporter. He's an activist, and it's a little tricky to determine exactly what it is. I'd like to point out one other thing. I am logged in here through Facebook to the Huffington Post. Facebook is able to track the articles that I read on here, and if I let all my Facebook friends know what I've been reading. And sometimes I am concerned about that, and sometimes I'm not. So what I'm telling you is be aware of the fact that some websites, if you're logged in, will be tracking everything that you do or read. This next article on wolves comes from the Idaho State Journal, and I'm not going to tell you right away what neighborhood it comes from, but we'll look closely here at it's coming out September 22nd, 2010, and there's no name on it. It does, however, have a label, press release, which I was surprised to find here. I don't think I've ever seen in a newspaper or on a newspaper website an article labeled press release. But that is, in fact, what this is. Idaho Senators introduce wolf bill. Idaho Senators Mike Crapo and Jim Risch introduced legislation today to remove the gray wolf from being listed as a threatened or endangered species. This would appear, if you're not very careful and look at this grayed out header, it sounds just like a news article. But in fact, it comes directly from Senator Mike Crapo and Jim Risch. And if we go to their website, this is Mike Crapo's website from July 21st, 2012. No, that's today's date. September 22nd, 2010. We can see Idaho Senators Mike Crapo, Jim Risch introduced legislation today to remove the gray wolf from being listed as a threatened or endangered species. It's verbatim from Crapo's press office, reprinted in the Idaho State Journal. I would argue that these reporters are not doing their job, and they're not reporting on this. They're just reprinting what politicians are sending them, which would put this squarely in the publicity neighborhood. So when we're reading articles in newspapers, we need to be aware that sometimes they come in the form of press releases directly from the people who have an interest in promulgating that news. What the reporters at this paper could have done is taken this information, called a whole bunch of people, asked them what they think about it, and made a short news article about it, which would not have taken them very long to do. I think that would have been a better result. But we do have the information, and at least we can know from here what our senators, Mike Crapo and Jim Risch, think about this particular bill that they're introducing. So we've talked about news, opinion, publicity. I'd like to speak a minute about rumor next. There's a website called Snopescom that has a mission of getting to the bottom of all those crazy emails that you get from your uncles and friends that make wild claims that may or may not be true. Last year, there were some articles, last year there were photos of giant wolves circulating on the internet. Wolves that look like these, bigger than a man. And some wild claims about these wolves being killed in Idaho with wolf tags. When I look at this, I'm skeptical that this is a wolf born in Idaho. And I don't have any real proof of that. But if you read the email, there's a few clues here. For instance, this line here, they sure do look cuddly and cute. If this was pure information, I don't think it would say something like that. And then this is spelled wrong, Trantosaurus rex. Okay, so there's certain clues in here that perhaps it's not 100% factual. And Snopes.com goes through the history of these pictures and gives its origins. And it says that they do not know for sure where the origin of these wolf photographs are, but that they've seen them in many different places with different claims as to where they were taken. The Idaho Mountain Express did some research on this and found that even Idaho wildlife officials said that this was a hoax. So these pictures, if you were considering sending them on or if they made you angry, you should have checked Snopes.com or done some Googling on your own to find out if they were real pictures or not. You can see there's a lot of information here at Snopes about these pictures. So I would recommend that you have, again, your antenna up, and when something looks like a rumor, check it out before you pass it on. I want to talk about one more issue with point of view, and that would have to do with art. If we look at this picture of a wolf, there's a few ways you could look at it, but it does, in general, to me, look like a menacing picture. The wolf's hair on its back is bristling, its head is low, eyes are focused. This looks like a wolf about to attack. And the headline, "Kill Order Issued for 3 Central Idaho Wolves," is designed to create some emotion in us. Perhaps to temper the fact that these wolves are being killed by federal authorities with a photo of a menacing-looking wolf. If we compare that to this picture in the Boise Weekly of a little cute wolf puppy, we can see that there's different emotions that art can bring up in us. So we should be thinking about our emotional reaction to news, photos, and videos, and even the writing at times when we're reading and analyzing news sources. So that's a quick rundown of what kind of informational neighborhoods to be aware of as you're surfing the web and reading for informational purposes. This is our 4th screencast. We'll see you back in a minute. Thank you for watching. If you go back to the lessons, you'll see an exercise in determining which news neighborhood you are looking at. Talk to you soon.